Thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of the Equalize program and everything we've gained from it, and especially to our mentor, Wayne, who's been absolutely incredible in helping us navigate the environment in which we're working in and hone our ideals and really make it us focus. All right, and of course, I'm not able to forward my slide. All right, I am struggling to forward my slide.
Click right on your slide.
Yeah, there we go. Glaucoma is the #1 cause of irreversible blindness in the world. Currently, over 3 million people are being treated for glaucoma in the US alone, and that number is obviously going to increase as the world population ages because there is an age component to glaucoma. And it's estimated that by 2040, over 110 million people worldwide will be undergoing treatment. And because of this, it's a very large market. It's estimated that the current market is $3.8 billion in global glaucoma therapeutic sales. But these numbers actually underestimate the true number of people with glaucoma. And this is because the early stages of vision loss are silent. Frankly, people don't know they're losing their vision until it's become quite significant and they can't see things in their peripheral vision. And by this point, it is quite late in the disease. The primary risk factor for losing vision in glaucoma is an elevated intraocular pressure, or IOP. And there are numerous IOP lowering medications on the market, but all of them have major failures that lead to dissatisfaction among patients. First of all, there's no treatment that provides a sustained IOP lowering effect that lasts a full 24 hours. And this is important because it's not just elevated IOP that causes a vision loss, but it is IOP fluctuation. So if you have a drug that takes it to a low intraocular pressure, but IOP increases before the next dose is given, that's just as bad as having a sustained elevated IOP. Furthermore, many IOP lowering medications lose effectiveness. There are limited options for other drug classes. Many of them require multiple daily doses. They have terrible side effects that patients cannot tolerate. And because of this, patient adherence is low. It's estimated that over 40% of patients stop taking their glaucoma medications on their own. Oculotherapy offers a new glaucoma treatment that addresses all of these failures. And I present to you today Calcitra, which is indicated for the reduction of IOP in patients with open-angle glaucoma and ocular hypertension. Calcitra offers a sustained IOP lowering action and eliminates IOP fluctuations. It's a new drug class with a completely different mechanism of action. There are no documented side effects, and this we predict would lead to an increase in patient adherence and compliance. So how does Calcitra work? Well, a few years ago, we discovered a new IOP modulating gene, which is a CAC-NA2D1, and we characterized the protein that is produced by this gene. And we established previously unknown mechanisms by which this calcium channel subunit, CAC-NA2, regulates intraocular pressure. And although this was discovered in mice, we confirmed it in humans. The CAC-NA2D1, as I mentioned, is a new druggable target, and it is well known that pregabalin targets this CAC-2D1 with high specificity and affinity. It's already an FDA-approved drug, and it's currently sold as a generic to treat pain. And so this is a new and highly effective treatment for patients who are just starting out on glaucoma therapeutics, as well as existing patients whose current treatments fail. Here I'm showing the anatomy of the front part of the eye, which is involved in regulating intraocular pressure. IOP is modulated by a balance of aqueous humor, which is kind of a blood substitute in the front of the eye, the production of it, as well as the outflow of it from the anterior part of the eye. And what I'm showing here in this immunohistochemistry image is that the protein, the CAC-NA2D1, shown in green here, is found in all the structures that are involved in modulating intraocular pressure. The ciliary body, where aqueous humor is made, as well as the trabecular meshwork and canal phlegm, where the aqueous humor exits the eye. And our once daily Calcitra, we are showing here that it lowers IOP for a full 24 hours without IOP rebound. And here I'm showing some data from our top competitor, Repressa, which was just marketed a few years ago. And it decreases intraocular pressure, shown here. So what we're seeing is a decrease in intraocular pressure from time 0 up until 24 hours after that dose was given. And with Repressa, we get our maximum IOP reduction happens at 8 hours after dosing, and we get about a 6 millimeter reduction in IOP, which is very good. But sometime before 24 hours, we don't know when, the Aerie Pharmaceuticals hasn't shown us those data, but before the next daily dose would be given, IOP is returned to its elevated baseline. In contrast, Calcitra lowers IOP to a greater extent. We show an 8 millimeter mercury reduction in IOP at an earlier time point. But importantly, I want to draw your attention to at 24 hours, IOP is still reduced. It never goes back to the elevated baseline that is measured before we gave our first dose. And this is very important. And this is possible because we've developed an innovative platform, drug delivery platform, a multi-layered microemulsion that allows for extended release of pregabalin and frankly other drugs as well for up to 30 hours when given as an IOP, eye drop. So we wanted to evaluate multiple dosing of Calcitra, and so we performed a tachyphylaxis study for 60 days. And in this graph, I'm showing you some eyes were dosed with placebo, and you see that IOP stays up here elevated at approximately 20 to 22 millimeters of mercury. In contrast, eyes that receive Calcitra are maintained here between 15 to 13 millimeters of mercury. But I'd like to draw your attention to this point here. So before we gave our first dose of Calcitra, those animals were also at an elevated intraocular pressure. And so what our data here is showing this is once daily Calcitra keeps IOP in the normal healthy range. There is no rebound of IOP back to its elevated baseline at any time. And furthermore, there's no loss of efficacy for up to the 2 months that we're showing here. As I mentioned previously, many IOP lowering drops that are marketed right now have side effects that are unbearable to patients. Patients that have beautiful blue or green eyes, their irises turn brown and there's no reversal of that to the original color. There are hemorrhages, there's blurred vision, there are deposits in the cornea. There are lots of things that make patients stop taking their drugs on their own. But Calcitra produces no observable swelling, redness, irritation, both on clinical exams as well as histopathology. There's really no difference between eyes that receive Calcitra daily for 2 months versus those that did not. So how does Calcitra compete with currently marketed IOP lowering drops? Specifically, why would an ophthalmologist or an optometrist prescribe Calcitra? Well, it's the only medication that targets the 2 primary risk factors for vision loss and glaucoma, that being elevated intraocular pressure, as well as IOP fluctuations. Furthermore, it provides an alternative new option when current treatment options lose their effectiveness. And why would a patient switch to Calcitra? Well, we have documented no eye irritation or other side effects, and we've demonstrated that once daily dosing is truly effective for at least 24 hours, in contrast to other IOP lowering drugs that are marketed, even those that are marketed as once daily dosing. Our regulatory and IP strategy is pretty streamlined. Pregabalin is already FDA approved, and the original patents of Lyrica, which were the pregabalin use is now generic, and so we don't have to license that from Pfizer. Given this, we will file under a 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway, which is less expensive, provides a faster route to approval and market. Furthermore, we have a patent pending for pregabalin microemulsion as an IOP lowering therapeutic. Our developmental timeline is shown here. We are here at the first star. We've already done all of our proof of concept and lead optimization. We've performed our initial tox biodistribution profiles. We were able to do all of this with approximately $8 million of non-dilutive funding that we've received from various NIH grants, R1s, R24s, a few SBIR grants, And currently, we're seeking $10 million that will take us to IND approval. We are gearing up to file an application for a pre-IND meeting by the end of summer. And we, with guidance from the FDA, will scale up our GMP production, perform IND enabling studies as well. Ocular Therapy is owned by its founders, other than a small fee that is due to University of Tennessee Research Foundation, where that has supported us up to this point. With that $10 million over the next 2 years, we will perform scale up GMP production, as well as IND enabling toxicology studies. In addition, we want to build out our in-house team to include a CEO with a successful track record of company development and partnerships with large pharma. We want to build out our clinical team and identify partners for phase 1 and 2 clinical trials. We also want to seek partnerships with big pharma for phase 3 clinical trials and product launch. We expect that within 5 years, we will be able to out-license and or sell Calcitra to big pharma for approximately $150 million based upon comparable analysis of other similar pharmaceutical, small pharmaceutical companies in the ophthalmic space. Our ocular therapy team is well strategized. I've been doing eye research for well over 25 years. I have over 15 years of experience in developing novel technologies for ocular dosing, studies of ocular diseases. Our CEO, Diana Johnson, has over 40 years experience in vision research and multiple leadership experience. She's served as PI on both of our SBIR grants. Alyssa Bowler has 10 years of startup experience. She's helped to build multiple pharmaceutical startups in the Memphis area. We've already onboarded all of our consultants and CROs, et cetera, that will assist us in getting our drug to the market. Thank you for the opportunity to pitch to you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Monica. Chris Garabedian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, really, Monica, really nice job and excellent comprehensive overview, and you delivered it well in the short time frame. And this is a real, this is truly an unmet need. It's a crowded space, and I know you mentioned this, so you already kind of answered my question, which is the need for clinical strategy and even regulatory strategy going into the FDA, because I think studying this initially in the right population and finding the appropriate kind of enriched where this occurs frequently, you can get the right type of endpoints to guide the further development. So maybe if you can comment a little bit on how you're thinking about that going into the FDA, what are those key questions you're looking to ask? And if you have done any thinking about what does that clinical study look like?
Yes, we have fleshed out our clinical plan which is necessary as we prepare our IND application. We have several ophthalmic specialists as well as glaucoma specialists as part of our team who have helped us to build out our plan for our phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials. And luckily in the glaucoma space, it's fairly simple. You put a drop on the eye, you can measure pretty rapidly whether the intraocular pressure goes down or not. So the clinical trials, at least for phase 1 and phase 2, will be fairly straightforward and short in duration. We don't have to go for multiple years in order to determine whether we have an effective product or not. Memphis is actually an excellent place to host the clinical trials, because we have a very large African-American population, and the African-American population glaucoma is more prevalent in African-Americans than Caucasians. And so we have a very great group of patients that we've already started to characterize. And although we aren't ready to start the clinical trial yet, we've already been identifying patients and actually collecting their DNA so we can do some preliminary genotyping on those patients to see if they would be good fits for our drug, and what is the polymorphism profile in the genes that we're going to be targeting with the pregabalin. So we have many phases in place that we're working on already as we aim for going toward the FDA approval.
Cool. Thank you.
Great. Meghana.
Yeah, this is more of a scientific question. Is the calcium channel that you're targeting here, is it a very, like, what part of the eye is it restricted to? And is it, I forgot if you mentioned if it was necessarily like over expressed more so in a glaucoma eye than a normal eye? I mean, what's the thinking obviously behind targeting this?
Yeah, the calcium channel subunit that we identified with our systems genetics analyses, it's localized in the anterior segment of the eye, which in all the structures that are involved in modulating intraocular pressure. And currently we are actually doing some studies to identify and determine whether it is playing a larger role in aqueous humor production or aqueous humor outflow. We don't do those studies in my laboratory, but we're collaborating with the investigators who are experts on that, one of which is at Duke and the other is at Ohio State. So we're very close to identifying exactly the mechanism of action by which pregabalin is working. What was the second part of your question?
You covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
I get it. Thank you.
Thanks. Chris Warner.
Very, very nice presentation. One super naive question, and then just a second question that about sort of how you're thinking about this going forward. Could you just remind me, what would be the primary endpoint of the ultimate study you will need for phase 3? Is it lowering intraocular pressure, or is there a more clinically relevant endpoint that you would be targeting?
Well, IOP, lowering IOP is a clinically relevant endpoint. Elevated intraocular pressure and fluctuations in IOP are the primary risk factors for losing vision in glaucoma.
Okay.
However, it is not truly what defines glaucoma. Loss of vision in glaucoma is due to death of retinal ganglion cells and damage to their axons, which form the optic nerve. And if you can reduce intraocular pressure and eliminate those fluctuations, you will reduce the stress on the retinal ganglion cells and their axons. So it will have a direct effect on those cells that are involved in visual field loss.
Okay, so you won't have to establish the connection between IOP and vision loss. That's already established. You just simply,
correct.
Okay, got it. And
Correct.
then you talked about the on-market competition. Are there any drugs in development that you would be concerned about with this class of drugs?
With the class of drugs that we're working on, it's unique in the ophthalmic space, in the glaucoma space. No one else is looking at this.
Okay.
And we've actually look to see if there are other pregabalin analogs that may be more efficacious, and there are none. We've done a lot of protein modeling to see if there are other small molecules that would interact with the calcium channel that we are targeting. We've purchased some of those small molecules, we've synthesized others, and pregabalin is the best of the group.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.